Today's video is on the story of Robert Kissel, a hardworking and loving husband and father that did whatever it took to provide for his family. But in the end, it wasn't enough to save him from his tragic murder. Welcome back to Strange and Macabre. Here I post stories about true crime, paranormal, and cryptids. So if you're into that type of thing, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon for all notifications. Alright, so let's dive right in. This story starts in Hong Kong, which is translated from the Cantonese name Fragrant City. Here is where we find the Kissel family. The Kissels are comprised of 40-year-old father Robert, 39-year-old Nancy, and their three children, Elaine, June, and Reese. Robert was born on April the 21st, 1963. Growing up with his brother Andrew in New York, Robert was educated at the University of Rochester's College of Engineering before moving to attend New York University. Described as a quirky and funny guy, he had a relatively happy childhood and a supportive family which allowed him to flourish throughout his education into the man he would become. He met his future spouse Nancy Kishen in the 80s. After falling in love, the two got married. Nancy was a manager of sorts, having formerly worked at a cab company, a Mexican restaurant, and a bar. After obtaining work as a financial advisor in 1992, Robert's experience in the financial banking industry grew, and during this time, so did his family. Fast forward 5 years to the year 1997, and this couple had finally become a family of 5. And of course, with the growing household came an increasing demand for money. And it was around this time that Robert was offered a job at Asian Special Situations Group at Goldman Sachs. And this job would pay extremely well. But it did come with 2 caveats. The first was to accept longer work hours, and the second was the family to move to Hong Kong. And with this, Robert accepted the offer and the family packed their bags and moved to Hong Kong. When settling in, the family moved into the Hong Kong Park View area, which is a large private housing estate which is very luxurious. Robert would eventually become the VP of the Asian Special Situations Group, and in the year 2000, he was hired by Merrill Lynch to manage their assets divisions, providing a hefty salary of $3 million per year. While Robert's career was skyrocketing, Nancy became the VP of the local school's parent-teacher board. Eventually, both were known as a power couple throughout the town. However, Nancy and Robert's happy life appeared to be a mere facade, as apparently, ever since they moved to Hong Kong, Robert had allegedly become a little too familiar with whiskey and was reported to have been abusing cocaine and his wife in the bedroom. Whether this is true or not, we will never know. For the most part, they were able to keep everything under wraps. But unknown to them, there was a deadly pandemic just around the corner. And it was not COVID-19. It was its predecessor, SARS-CoV-1. SARS-CoV-1 was first identified in Guangdong, China, with a case fatality rate of 11% and had a high risk of catching it. Robert couldn't leave his business behind, so he made the decision for the safety of Nancy and the kids for them to return back to the States, being that they still owned a home in Vermont. Now, while back in the States, the kids were getting restless, so Nancy decided to build a home theater in the garden. And with it comes construction, and with construction comes many builders, and Nancy took a liking to one of them, an electrical repairman by the name of Michael Del Priori. Now, financially speaking, he was in a different place compared to Robert. When Robert made over $3 million a year, Michael lived in a trailer park. Now, of course, money isn't everything, and maybe it was because he had a laid-back lifestyle, which gave Nancy something that she was longing for, which was affection. Whatever her reasoning was, over time Robert grew suspicious and hired a private investigator, which within a few weeks the PI was able to confirm Nancy's infidelity. Eventually, the SARS virus slowed its spread and became less of a threat. Robert was able to convince Nancy and the kids to come back to Hong Kong. Robert was already worried that his marriage with Nancy was on the rocks, and he made great effort to salvage their relationship, but it was a little too late. The relationship between the two became toxic, but little did at least one of them know that on November the 2nd, 2003, the whole thing would finally reach its breaking point. That night, Robert did not attend an essential call that he and his colleagues had prepared for many weeks. Knowing that was outside of Robert's character, the VP of Merrill Lynch's Hong Kong division reached out to Robert's home to try to find out what was going on. But instead of getting Robert, he got Nancy, which advised that Robert was going through some personal issues. But as the week progressed and no contact from Robert, the VP contacted authorities. Shortly after, the authorities made their way to the residence where they met Nancy and their 3 kids. Nancy proceeded to give them a statement that Robert left their house after assaulting her. But during this time, police were tipped by a serviceman working in the complex, stating that Nancy requested help on moving an old rug into a garage, and apparently the rug was so heavy that it required 4 service members to help move it. And those who moved it complained that the rug smelled very fishy. After entering the garage, investigators found the rug bound with rope and clear adhesive tape. And after unrolling the rug, investigators were left in horror. Lying inside with the plastic bag tied around his head was the body of Robert Kissel. And so on November the 7th, 2003, Nancy was arrested and charged for the murder of her husband. Examiners determined that Robert had been hit 5 times with a blunt instrument and had the presence of 6 prescription medications, 5 of which was prescribed to Nancy. Diving further into the investigation, police discovered that Nancy drugged Robert by having her 6-year-old daughter give him a strawberry milkshake which was laced with a cocktail of sedatives. When the drugs had taken effect and the children were out of the apartment, Nancy bludgeoned her husband to death. She then rolled up his body in the carpet. After her arrest, Nancy admitted to killing her husband in self-defense, claiming that she was a victim of domestic violence, some of which included the repeated acts of rape and sodomy. Nancy pleaded not guilty. At the end of the trial, which lasted 65 days, on September the 1st, 2005, the jury of 5 men and 2 women unanimously decided her to be guilty after 8 hours of deliberation. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. So what are your thoughts on this case? Was justice served? Leave your thoughts in comments. Thanks for watching. If you're into true crime, paranormal, and cryptids, check out our other videos that are on here, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time.